I'm Jeff Snider, the mayor of Dodgertown, and today we're talking to you about the World Series matchup being set. We'll talk about Bob Melvin being on the move in the National League West. It's not official, but it's official, and who the Padres might replace him with. We'll talk about the potential retirement of Mad Dog Russo. What a sad development that could be. Let's get started. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go and subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio. We're doing a split episode today, so I'll be with you for the first half. Vince will be with you for the second half. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And for those of you listening on the podcast, the intro, the cold open was a little bit different than usual. If you're watching on YouTube, you understand why. I had my church Halloween party tonight, and you everydayers knew what I was going to be for Halloween because I told you about it months ago. I dressed up as Guy Fieri, and so I had to change glasses during the intro song because I can't see with sunglasses on. So I don't look as much like Guy Fieri without the sunglasses on, but I'm pretty happy with the way the costume turned out. Also want to shout out Vince. He's the MVP of this partnership today. I was going to do a solo episode. I am sick as a dog today. I am barely going to get through my half of this episode, so I appreciate Vince. Vince was in Philadelphia to watch Game 7 of the NLCS, and he has a flight early in the morning, but he is going to get half of an episode done to help me out because I need to go to bed and try to recover. So shout out to Vince. Shout out to all you. That's why my voice sounds a little bit different. This is not a Guy Fieri impression. This is just what I sound like when I'm sick. So, a lot of stuff going on. Like I said, Vince was at Game 7. And so being at a stadium when a team's season ends is a sad thing. I've done it. I can only think of twice. I know in 2015, I was there when the Mets, Game 5 of the NLDS, when the Mets beat the Dodgers. I will never forget Jase Familia very unathletically jumping up and down on the mound after getting the last out. And then I was there in 2017 when the Cheaters beat the Dodgers. It's not a fun thing. Philadelphia fans are passionate. I assume there was a lot of emotions there. I was happy for the DBacks watching them celebrate. They've got some likable guys. Other than the fact that they beat the Dodgers, they've got some likable players. They've got Tommy Pham too, but even Tommy Pham, there's likable things about him. So you know what? It's going to be the DBacks and the Rangers. I think Vince will probably talk more about the in-person experience. DBacks Rangers is not exactly a ratings juggernaut. I'm here to say I don't care, and I don't think you should either. Even Major League Baseball, like the fact is, if the Raiders are bad every year, that might affect the next contract with Fox. But Fox is paying the same amount for this World Series, regardless of who's playing in it. And a lot of times you do get compelling matchups. And, Dallas is a big TV market. Phoenix isn't bad. And so, there will be ratings. It's not the national ratings. If you're not from Dallas or Phoenix and you're not just a diehard baseball fan who lives and dies with everything baseball, you might not watch a lot of this World Series. And that's okay. I don't think it really affects much of anything. But I'm excited that it will be a new winner. They said on the Altcast tonight that this is the first time since 2016 that the World Series will not have the Dodgers or the Astros in it. And that's cool. That's, obviously I wish the Dodgers were in it, but it is probably good for for something, for variety. There will be plenty of talk about the crapshoot nature of the playoffs, and that's understandable too. The D-backs won 84 games in the regular season. Only the 2006 Cardinals with 83 wins have won the World Series with fewer wins, and the Rangers only won 90 games. And so whoever wins the World Series will be the second team ever to win 13 postseason games in one postseason. And first team, 2020 Dodgers. That's why I have no patience for people who try to devalue the 2020 World Series, because the Dodgers, as of right now, are the only team that's ever had to win 13 postseason games. And the way they earned that right to have to win 13 postseason games was by being on a 116 win pace in the regular season. Yes, it was shorter, blah, 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 blah. You can't have it both ways. If only the postseason matters, then only the postseason matters. If you recognize that the postseason and the regular season are two different things, the Dodgers won the World Series in 2020, and they won 13 games. Either the D-backs or the Rangers will match that mark. So that's exciting for their fans. Vince, like I said, he'll have more to say about that. I've got a couple World Series, non-NLCS things to talk about, although this one is kind of tied to it. Mad Dog Russo, Chris Russo on MLB Network and SiriusXM and a bunch of other places that for some reason pay him to talk. He said before Game 6 that if the D-backs won Games 6 and 7 in Philadelphia to win the series, he would retire on the spot. The D-backs did that, and I don't know. I haven't seen it come through yet. Russo announcing his retirement. It's 10 p.m. Utah time where I am right now, which means it's midnight Eastern time. So we'll see if he sticks to his word. Personally, I think that would be a pretty good thing because he has an annoying voice and he says dumb things. He's pretty bad at his job. He has hot takes, and so people who like hot takes like watching him and listening to him. So in that way, he's good at his job. If you like intelligent takes, not so much. If you like, anything good in life, you don't like Mad Dog Russo. And I know everybody has different tastes. There's probably people listening to me right now who do like Mad Dog Russo and also accurately think I have a bad voice. But at least my voice isn't like this, and I don't say really stupid things quite as often as he does. So, Mad Dog Russo may be retiring. Will Alana Rizzo take over his show all by herself? Who knows? But that's something to keep an eye on, I guess. Another thing to keep an eye on that I'm going to come back in a minute and talk about is the Padres need a new manager because their manager, Bob Melvin, has become, it's not official yet, but it's basically official that he is becoming the manager of the San Francisco Giants. We talked the other day about the possibility of this happening. We're going to talk a little bit more about the details of who might take over for Melvin in San Diego. So I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about that. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile, and things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. I have a wife and 3 kids, and we try to be as prepared as possible, but medicine has always been a concern of mine. There have been times when I've been on vacation out of the country and got an ear infection. I always get ear infections when I go to a tropical resort for some reason, and I've had to go pay, find a doctor in Cancun and get antibiotics. It's a pain. Well, Jase Medical is a solution. Jase Medical is simple. You go online, fill out a form, and then you get a prescription, life-saving medications right to your door. The Jase case gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. I did this a month or so ago when Jase started sponsoring our show. It was quick and painless. Just a few minutes, a follow-up email from a local doctor licensed to prescribe medicine here in Utah, and I was done. I got my case of 5 standard antibiotics just a couple days later. Now they're in our 72-hour kit so that we'll always have them ready. They send the prescriptions to one of their partner pharmacies where your Jase order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. And not only this, you can send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions anytime. Get $20 off these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using our code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, especially you everydayers, those of you who are with us every weekday morning. We really appreciate it. Honestly, if we weren't so committed to being with you every weekday morning, today might have been an episode we would have skipped because Vince has an 8 a.m. flight Eastern time. I'm sick, and but we are going to do this episode because we love talking Dodgers with you, and obviously not a lot of Dodger-specific talk right now. It's more baseball talk, but that's fun too because we love baseball. The Padres need a new manager. Bob Melvin is taking the job in San Francisco. No surprise, as we talked about the other day, John Heyman had made the point that the Giants wouldn't interview him unless they were pretty sure they wanted to hire him. Melvin wouldn't accept the interview unless he was pretty sure he wanted to take the job. He's from the Bay Area, so it all makes sense that Bob Melvin is going to San Francisco. He'll be replacing Gabe Kapler. That means somebody will be replacing Bob Melvin in San Diego. There's an article on The Athletic by a couple athletic writers. I can't remember who. I think Britt Garoli was one, and maybe Kevin Acey. No, he doesn't write for The Athletic. Anyway, somebody who writes for The Athletic about the Padres. And they talked about external candidates that they might interview, including Don Mattingly and Joe Espada, the Astros bench coach, a couple other people. They did say it seems pretty likely that the Padres will hire from within, and it will be either Ryan Flaherty or Mike Shildt. Ryan Flaherty has never managed in the big leagues. He's only 37 years old. He'd be the youngest manager in baseball. If he gets the job, he used to be teammates with Manny Machado in Baltimore, just retired a couple of years ago. He's been working in front offices and stuff since then. Mike Shildt obviously is the former manager of the Cardinals. He's been with the Padres in kind of a advisory role, but in the dugout lately. And so one of those two guys is likely to get the job. I'm interested to see which way they go because Shildt is a classic old school manager. He's a guy, he never played in the big leagues. He coached in the minors for 500 years before he got a shot in the big leagues. And then he got the job managing the Cardinals, did pretty well. But overall, after 2021, when the Dodgers knocked the Cardinals out in the wild card game, the Cardinals moved on from Mike Shildt. And, will the Padres take a chance on him? I don't know. Ryan Flaherty, I don't have any idea what kind of manager he'd be because he's never been a manager. And so he's young. You having worked in front offices, all front offices are statistically inclined these days. So you assume that Flaherty would be more statistically inclined than Shildt. But one kind of important note is that Bob Melvin and AJ Preller didn't get along in San Diego. And some of that was probably because Melvin is a little bit of an old school manager. He's very smart and not anti-analytics by any means. But he is probably more, excuse me, this cough is getting me. He is probably more of an old school manager than AJ Preller would have preferred. Even more to the point, he kind of seemed to want AJ Preller to stay out of the dugout, stay out of his business, let me manage the team. And, will Melvin get that in San Francisco? I don't know. I don't have any idea how Farhan Zaidi is compared to AJ Preller. My impression is that pretty much everybody is easier to get along with than AJ Preller. So maybe that'll be a match made in heaven for Melvin. I have a hard time seeing Mike Shildt coexisting well with Preller, but I don't know if that's based on anything other than, that Shildt is older than Flaherty. And maybe that's not a good enough reason, but it will be interesting to see who the Padres go with between those two guys. Obviously there's still a chance they could go with one of the outside people. But everybody seems to think it's going to be one of those two guys. It'll be, the Padres have had a lot of turnover in the managerial department the last several years. This adds to that. And can Flaherty or Shildt be the one who rights the ship? And it's not like it's been all bad. The Padres played in the NLCS just last year. But 2021 and 2023 were both very disappointing for the Padres. And 2021 got Jase Tingler fired. 2023 got the Padres to grant permission for Bob Melvin to go away. So not quite getting fired, but not getting fired. And so whoever comes in, they're going to be expecting, hey, we spend a lot of money. We have a lot of talent on our roster. We need results. And so can one of those guys bring in the results? I guess we'll see. And it'll be fun to watch. Obviously, it impacts the Dodgers because the Dodgers play the Padres 13 times a year. So that'll be interesting, really interesting. That's going to do it for me. Vince is going to come along. Like I said, he was at Game 7 in the NLCS. He'll have kind of the in-person report, other stuff to talk about. And yeah, thank you all for being everydayers. Be sure to check out SiriusXM, the SXM app. Search for Locked On Dodgers. You can listen to this show there. You can listen to all the World Series games on the SXM app or SiriusXM. Check all that out. And that's going to do it for me. So Vince will be along in a minute.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. October baseball is nearly over, but you can still make your postseason debut with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Join FanDuel today, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 free in bonus bets. All you got to do is put down a $5 bet. What are you waiting for? Go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to create your new account. And from there, you can get in on the action from first pitch until final out. Of course, you can bet on outcomes of the games. You can bet on players to do certain things, homers, strikeouts, total bases, combination. You can put together some same-game parlays where you can put together multiple people. If you think Corey Seager's going to homer, and you also think that Corbin Carroll's going to steal a base, and you also think that Zach Gallen's going to strike out 6+, then you can do all that and put together same-game parlay and, increase your chances for winning that big money. So don't wait, and you also don't have to wait for the whole game. If you want some instant results, you can do their quick bets. What's going to happen in the next at bat? What's going to happen in the next inning? Quick bets is there for you. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Step up to the plate this postseason with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Yo, Dodger fans. Vince here to close out the episode. And we're here to talk about Game 7 of the World Series, of the National League Championship Series. And just kind of the playoffs now in general. Like Jeff mentioned, it's a 90-win Ranger team versus an 84-win Diamondback team. Now, in the American League, the 90-win factor of the Rangers isn't as big a deal in the sense of the Astros, who won that same division that the Rangers are in, also had 90 wins. So they were just a lower tier in terms of wins division this year. But the Twins were around this, or less than that, or around the same. The AL was a little bit flipped this year. The new schedule, maybe made a little bit more. The AL East had a bunch of winning teams or 3 winning teams, 2 of the top 2 in terms of wins. The AL West had 3 90-win teams, but only 2 of them made the playoffs. And then you had the AL Central, which isn't very good. But on the National League side, the like I said, the Rangers are a 5th seed, but they could have easily been a 3rd seed, and if they were, or a 2nd seed. And if they were a 2nd seed, probably don't bat your eyes as much as if they were the 5th seed like they are now. Whereas on the National League side, Diamondbacks, they're an 84-win team, had a negative run differential. They were the 6th seed. Like, it's hard to put together how this run has been for them. Like, a lot of people have the Brewers as a potential World Series contender. Bob Nightingale had them winning the World Series, and they took down the Brewers. And then you have the Dodgers. They're still the 100-win Dodgers despite their flaws. They still, in theory, on paper, were the better team, should have been able to put it down. They lost. And then the Phillies, who were a 90-win team, but since Bryce Harper came back and kind of they were playing their best ball, they were just as good as the Braves were for the most part in the National League East. They took down the Braves in the NLDS, and were the favorite to win this series, especially after coming in hot, winning the first 2 games, winning by 10 runs in that second game. And, in all likelihood, all they had to do is win 2 of the last 4 games, or 2 of the last 5 games, and they would have been celebrating and going to a second straight World Series. But that didn't happen. And, for everyone who says playoffs are a crapshoot, like, this is what that means in essence, where the Diamondbacks got hot, and now they're in the World Series, and for the second straight year, a team that was the 6th seed in the National League has made the World Series. So for the second straight year, a team that made the World Series wouldn't have been in the postseason if it was 2021. And for that sake, it's interesting because you think about everything that could have happened. You think about the Cubs, you think about the Padres, you think about the Mets. Like, if just one of those teams had won 85 games, which is still not a great season, but had won 85 games, the Diamondbacks wouldn't even have been in the postseason. And now here they are in the World Series. And, it's not a knock on the Diamondbacks. And I'm not criticizing the format. I do think the format has devalued the regular season, but also, I would allow it to kind of bear out a few more years, get a little bit more of a sample size, before I would, completely say, oh, this, what's the point of playing 162 games if, it doesn't matter in the end because these 6 seeds keep making the World Series. And that kind of goes to show, like, baseball, the playoffs has become more tournament-like than anything else. Similar, the upsets that are starting to happen is not quite March Madness level, but in a sense, realistically, men's college basketball, regular season doesn't matter too much other than to make sure you are in the big dance. And, that's what a lot of people say, like, we just need to make it to the big dance. And, there you have a wide variety of teams, and, teams that win their conference, but they're, still a 12 to 16 seed. So realistically, don't have the greatest chance of winning, but, they can win. And then you have teams that are, maybe 7th in their conference that get in as a 11, 12 seed, just because their conference is so strong. And then, now they are playing spoiler because, they're not as bad as the 7th best team in one conference isn't as bad as the 2nd best team in another conference, if that's how the matchups play out. But it does feel more tournament like. You really have no idea what's going to happen. Last year, you probably could have predicted the Astros to make it in the American League. That wasn't a shocker. And this year they were 1 game away from doing it again. And again, it wouldn't have been a shocker. But the fact that the Rangers did make it is a little bit of a shocker, considering that you had the Orioles with the 101 wins, who were also flawed, like the Dodgers, and more in the starting pitching department. But, still to win 101 games, especially when you're in the AL East, is still an accomplishment. The Rays to win 99 games, and, the Rays have had success in October, varying degrees of success in October, even with the small the small payroll and everything else. But then, the Rangers just have played really well. They've gotten starting pitching, and they've gotten timely hitting, and they've had good enough bullpen. They gave up a game. Altuve hit that homer off of Clerk in a game that the Rangers probably should have won. Maybe this series would have been over in 6 rather than 7. But they've done what they needed to do in order to advance and in order to win. And I think it's just, as an overall fan of baseball, it's, I would say, more exciting I particularly don't care about ratings. And now the matchup that we do have, Rangers DBacks, based on the 2 week sample or the month long sample size we now have, is an intriguing matchup. You have, Eovaldi and Montgomery, and you have Gallen and Kelly, and then you have, the back ends of the bullpen. You have Sewald and Leclerc. Like, you have names that you can recognize, and then offensively, you have Corbin Carroll and Gabriel Moreno, and Chris Walker hasn't hit, but I'm sure he might hit eventually. And on the other side, you have Semien, and Semien hasn't hit, but he will hit eventually. Well, you would hope for the Rangers. And then you have Seager and you have Adolis Garcia. They probably have a little bit more of the star power with Garcia, the way he's kind of broken out this postseason, and Seager, who's been there before and been a World Series MVP before. So the matchup is intriguing, but the matchup is only intriguing because of what's happened over this last month. If you would have told me when October started or when the postseason started that we're going to get D-backs and Rangers, I would have been like, it's not a series I want to watch. But now that we've seen it play out over a month, it's a series that's intriguing, and it's the series that we have. So it's not like, I would have honestly, Houston, just making in general, doesn't intrigue me. They just because they've been there, and it's like, yeah. And then Philly has the stars, but they get the job done. And just kind of also goes back to the manager stuff of, I'm sure there's people out there that would rather have Dusty Baker than Dave Roberts, and guess what? He also lost. I'm sure there's people that would rather have Rob Thompson than Dave Roberts, and guess what? He lost, and it wasn't necessarily anything that he did per se, maybe then having a little bit too much trust in Craig Kimbrell, but Craig Kimbrell was that guy for most of the year for them in that situation that he did pitch, in the one game when it's a tie game and he gave up the walk-off, that's just, you're in a situation where you can't really win no matter what happens. And they were down to, not that many arms left. In the next game, I wouldn't have gone back to Kimbrell even with the 2-run lead, just because he's not stable enough to put trust into. And that was me just watching the postseason. I would assume Craig Kimbrell was like that for the regular season too. But it happens like that. It's hard to predict anything here in October for not just the Dodgers but baseball in general, and it's definitely hard to do it. But I'll finish off kind of talking about like the in-person experience. Philadelphia playoff game is fun. I was there for the World Series last year. I was here for these last 2 games of the series here, and it is an electric stadium. The fans are good. It was funny for me to see the progression of the fans though in this particular game. Like, you could feel the nervous energy before the game. Then once the game starts, it's full bore, 100%. Like, they're all in and expecting the Phillies to win. The Phillies go down in the first, and they, come back and tie it. They end up taking the lead. The lead didn't last very long. The D-backs came back and took the lead and never gave up the lead from there. And then, Philly fans just went from, yeah, Phillies, rah, rah, Phillies, rah, rah, Phillies, rah, rah, Phillies, to, man, come on, guys, figure it out, to, oh, this guy sucks, this guy sucks, to full on, anger at the end. And I can understand that. I've been to various games when the Dodgers have lost in the postseason and been eliminated, and I understand that feeling. So maybe not quite the same as the Philadelphia fans, but definitely, similar sentiments, just the way it all plays out. But you look at the D-backs team, and you know what? Like, I know they beat the Dodgers. I know they're a division rival, but I talked about this, the other day of they're you strip, that part away, that if you care that they beat the Dodgers, or if you care that they're in the same division as the Dodgers, like, they're an easy team to root for. They have, Tommy Pham might be the most polarizing, but that's just, more so because he slapped Jock. If that situation had happened, I don't think people pay too much mind to Tommy Pham in general. And then you have the young guys who are performing. You have Corbin Carroll and Gavin Moreno and Alec Thomas, who had the big home run off Kimbrel that one game. And then, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. Like, Merrill Kelly has a cool story. Zach Gallen is a interesting guy, and he's fun. And you got Seawald coming over from the Mariners, and they were chanting Mad Dog in the clubhouse after the game when they were celebrating, knowing what Chris Russo had said. Troy Lavilla is a guy who's been there a few years now, and has really been through it with this team, and you can tell the guys love playing for him when they were talking to him after the game, when they brought talking to him on the stage after when they were getting their trophies, and you can tell the guys love playing for him. You have Evan Longoria, who probably had the most fun of anybody in the locker room after the game. Who knows? This might be his last year. Maybe this might be the way he goes out. And if he went out with the World Series title, more props and love to him. So this last segment was just kind of to say, the postseason sucked. So for us Dodge fans, this year's postseason sucked. Maybe the postseason format is going to be like this. We don't know yet. At least it has been these first two seasons. Maybe the Dodgers, will learn from this loss and try different ways of attacking. Because if you look at both the Rangers and the DBacks, I don't think there's a specific, especially with the DBacks, like there's no specific formula. They haven't signed any of those big name players yet. They have Zach Gallen, who they traded for, Merrill Kelly, who they signed, whatever, Seawald, who they traded for. They don't have these $300 million deals like the Rangers have, and even their big money deals the last few times were Greinke and Madison Bumgarner, and neither of those lasted throughout their entire contract. So it's just, I think you need two good starting pitchers to start off with. You need, a strong back end of the bullpen, which they have right now, which, Kinkle is looking really good. Seawald has looked really good. And you need guys to actually come through and contribute on the offensive side. And that's what they've had. Like, Corbin Carroll came through the first two series, wasn't really doing too much this series. And then boom, in game 7 has 3 hits, starts stealing bases the last couple games. Tommy Pham, who had a hot series against the Dodgers, didn't do much, up until a certain point, then homered in game 6. There's different guys that needed to come through for them to get to the point that they're at. And, I think that's what we're looking for from the Dodgers in the future. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening every day. Make sure to tell your friends and family. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to do all those things. Listen to Locked On Dodgers. We'll be here the rest of the way this October, the rest of the way this November, the rest of the way this December, all the way until we get spring training. And then once we get spring training, we're still going to be there. So make sure to check us out and tell people about us if you haven't already done so. Remember, you can get a hold of us on Twitter. Jeff is on Snider. I'm at Vince91. You can get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, Chase My Advice Play Podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.